What if I told you there were films so shocking, so socially radioactive, that polite society locked them away, only to be projected after dark, behind closed doors, and only for the brave? Welcome to the shadowy flip side of Hollywood's golden age, where beneath the glitter of studio lights and starlets, controversial pictures ignited moral outrage and sparked nationwide bans. These were movies that couldn't play at noon. They couldn't play at 8 p.m. They were smuggled into midnight slots, whispered about in hushed tones, and watched by those hungry for truth, art, or scandal. From blasphemy to sexual liberation, from race relations to raw depictions of addiction, these films didn't just push buttons, they smashed them. So dim the lights, silence your assumptions, and join us as we unspool the reels of 16 classic-era creations, so uncomfortable they were practically exiled to the witching hour. The Birth of a Nation, 1915. D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation is simultaneously a towering technical achievement and one of the most poisonous artifacts in motion picture history. As a director, Griffith pioneered innovations, cross-cutting, panoramic composite shots, large-scale battlefield staging that shaped the grammar of cinema itself. Yet the story he chose to tell was a toxic fairy tale, a glorification of the Ku Klux Klan as heroic guardians of a post-Civil War South, supposedly menaced by savage freedmen. The backlash was immediate and explosive. African-American communities organized boycotts. Newly formed chapters of the NAACP filed petitions for outright bans. In Boston, Atlanta, and New York, protesters filled the streets. At one New Jersey showing, furious viewers hurled eggs at the screen. Newspapers ran editorials warning that the film would inflame race hatred, and they were right. Its popularity helped fuel the Klan's 20th century resurgence, with recruiters literally setting up tables outside theaters. Griffith defended the picture as historical accuracy, even quoting contemporaneous white historians to mask its white supremacist fantasy. President Woodrow Wilson's private praise, like writing history with lightning, deepened the wound, confirming to many that the movie had presidential blessing. For decades, exhibitors nervously fenced the film into late-night slots to minimize riots. Even in the 21st century, the danger hasn't faded. A planned 2004 revival at Los Angeles' Silent Movie Theater was canceled after arson threats. Today, film schools screen it only with exhaustive disclaimers and academic armor, proof that a reel of celluloid can carry both artistic genius and cultural poison in a single can. Scarface, 1932. Long before Al Pacino yelled, "Say hello to my little friend," Paul Mooney's Tony Camonte was committing cinematic mayhem under cover of night. Howard Hawks and producer Howard Hughes based Scarface loosely on Al Capone, amplifying the viciousness that newspapers were splashing across front pages. Audiences had never seen machine gun murders rendered with such gleeful detail, or a crime boss quite so charismatic. Hollywood's newly empowered Hays office went ballistic. Censors insisted on three things: dial down the bloodshed, bolt a crime never pays moral to the ending, and erase the film's queasy hint of incest between Tony and his sister Cheska. One censor even demanded a lecture prologue condemning gangland violence. Hughes grudgingly shot alternate scenes, but also delayed release, filed lawsuits, and fed rumors to the press. The result was inadvertent marketing gold. Curious moviegoers packed any theater brave enough to run the uncensored cut, which often meant the after-hours slot when city officials were asleep. Lines curled around blocks. Some patrons planned Scarface weekends, taking trains to out-of-state midnight houses just to glimpse forbidden carnage. Critics were torn. Variety praised its ferocious energy, while civic groups decried it as a roadmap for youthful hoodlums. Chicago's mayor threatened to jail any exhibitor who showed it. Meanwhile, Al Capone himself screened a private print, and allegedly loved it. In the end, Scarface turned midnight into a cultural furnace, the hour when violence, style, and moral panic could coexist, selling tickets by the fistful. It set the blueprint for every gangster picture and every censorship battle that followed. The Outlaw, 1943. Howard Hughes believed controversy wasn't an obstacle. It was the whole advertising budget. The Outlaw, a dusty Western love triangle, should have been routine. Yet Hughes's camera could not stop caressing Jane Russell's neckline, framed by a wildly engineered brassiere he'd secretly redesigned for maximum lift. Hays Code sensors sputtered at what they called excessive breast prominence, refusing approval. Did Hughes trim the shots? Of course not. Instead, he phoned ministers, PTA presidents, and Morality League matrons, posing as a concerned citizen about an upcoming indecent movie. Headlines lit up. Is Hollywood trying to corrupt our daughters? By opening day, protesters were primed, exactly as Hughes intended. A few big city theaters accepted the risk, but skulked the film into midnight programs. Turnaway crowds surged. Some came to scowl, others to thrill at forbidden curves. In certain towns, police showed up anticipating rioting, only to find orderly lines of tuxes and furs whispering, "Is this where they show the outlaw?" The picture itself is slow-burn pulp, but Russell's languid poses stamped themselves on the national imagination. Life magazine ran a photo spread, religious periodicals ran sermons, teens snuck lobby cards out under their coats, ticket receipts soared past $5 million. Astronomical for a film many people never saw before, 11 p.m. Hughes walked away triumphant, demonstrating that moral panic could be reversed engineered into box office gold. The Outlaw became less a Western than a legend about marketing manipulation, proof that disapproving headlines can be louder than any paid commercial. Ecstasy, 1933. A sunlit meadow, a nude swim, a wordless encounter, and an implied female orgasm. Those few minutes of ecstasy detonated across 1930s Europe, like a slow-motion bomb. 19-year-old Hedy Kiesler, later Lamar, had filmed what director Gustav Machadi intended as a poetic study of marital frustration and rediscovered passion. The camera shows no explicit act, yet the actress's face conveys unmistakable pleasure. Catholic authorities erupted. Pope Pius XI singled out the film in a 1935 Vatican address condemning obscene spectacles. The U.S. Customs Office seized prints. The National Legion of Decency classified it C. condemned. In Paris, the movie was slotted into clandestine midnight salons frequented by artists, philosophers, and the merely curious. Tickets sold out weeks ahead. Czech diplomats begged exhibitors not to advertise it. The attention only grew. Journalists labeled Lamar the Ecstasy Girl, overshadowing her later brilliance as a wartime inventor who co-created spread-spectrum communication. For years, mainstream American distributors refused to touch the picture. Yet, bootleg 16mm prints flickered in college basements and after-hours clubs, perpetuating its taboo aura. Seen today, the scene feels tame, even lyrical. But in 1933, the idea of depicting a woman's autonomous pleasure was unthinkable. Ecstasy cracked that door open, even as society tried to slam it shut. Midnight shows became its refuge, a clandestine space where female desire could, quite literally, surface. Babyface, 1933. Lily Powers begins her journey in a smoky speakeasy above her father's steel mill bar, pouring drinks and fending off groping patrons. A Nietzsche quote, "Exploit yourself, be strong," sparks her transformation. She hops a freight train to New York City and weaponizes sex like a Wall Street battering ram, rising floor by floor inside a bank's Manhattan skyscraper. Audiences accustomed to seeing fallen women punished were stunned. Lily never grovels. She selects men with cold precision, trading embraces for promotions, and when they cling, she shrugs them off like out-of-season coats. Most shockingly, the camera treats her ambition with respect. Censor boards saw red. Ohio banned the film outright. Pennsylvania demanded a new ending where Lily renounces her ways. Warner Brothers reluctantly inserted a moralistic coda for general release. But late-night houses in big cities quietly swapped in the racier cut. Patrons compared notes. Did your print have the Nietzsche line? Did she still get on that boat to Paris? Those secret midnights bred legend. Returning GIs in the 1940s asked neighborhood managers if they still had the hot version. In 2004, archivists found the complete pre-code negative. Modern critics hailed Babyface as a proto-feminist landmark, 70 years ahead of Lean In. Stanwyck imbues Lily with steel, her eyes measuring rooms like a surveyor, her smile flickering only when it profits her. Even the cinematography reinforces her ascent. Each seduction takes place one floor higher than the last, until she's literally on the building's rooftop penthouse. By Midnight's Cloak, audiences could watch a woman win at a man's game without apology, something daylight theaters are still shy from even now. She Done Him Wrong, 1933. Why don't you come up sometime and see me? With that invitation, Mae West detonated a grenade of innuendo that Hollywood is still sweeping up. Set in a Bowery saloon, She Done Him Wrong is less plot than platform. Lady Lou sashays through a parade of suitors, pawning diamonds, quipping double entendres, and bending every man within reach. What rattled censors wasn't just her skin-tight gowns, or the way she drew, "Beulah, peel me a grape." It was West's refusal to repent. Sin, in her universe, is fun and profitable. Religious groups picketed. Women's clubs decried the corruption of young minds. Ohio's state board banned the film for flagrant off-color dialogue. Paramount's solution? Late-night screenings in the very markets where objections were loudest. Remarkably, critics loved it. The New York Times called West a one-woman rescue squad for the picture business. At 66 minutes, it became one of the shortest films ever nominated for Best Picture. Still, controversies dogged every revival. In the 1950s, TV networks tried airing censored cuts. West sued, demanding the jokes remain intact or not air at all. Midnight showings persisted through grindhouse and revival theaters, where laughter rumbled like subterranean thunder each time West tossed out a wink. She never blinked first. West's fearless embrace of bawdy humor forced the Hays office to tighten rules, but it also proved audiences were hungry for exactly what the rulemakers feared: the story of Temple Drake, 1933. Paramount executives knew adapting William Faulkner's Sanctuary could court disaster. The novel's lurid mix of bootlegging, kidnapping, and sexual assault shocked even hardened literary critics. Yet, the studio craved prestige and star Miriam Hopkins. The finished film softens nothing. Hopkins's Temple, a judge's flirtatious daughter, is taken hostage by gangster Popeye, violated off-screen, and forced into prostitution. 1933 audiences recoiled. Reviewers labeled it a cesspool of moral filth. Southern politicians called for boycotts. Paramount offered special, ladies-only matinees to soothe outrage, a tactic that backfired when word spread that women were fainting. Theaters in Texas and Tennessee refused bookings outright. Where it did play, local censors slashed minutes until the plot barely made sense. Midnight venues, however, often spliced the raw footage back in, creating two parallel versions: a daytime Baudelarization and a nocturnal blood and rum edition. Patrons compared experiences like veterans swapping war stories. The furor convinced Hollywood power brokers to enforce the Hays Code with new zeal starting in mid-1934. Ironically, the movie disappeared for decades, considered too toxic even for late-night slots, until archivists restored it in the 1990s. Modern viewers now recognize its stark depiction of victim shaming and institutional hypocrisy, topics still painfully relevant. Temple's final line, "I don't know whether I did wrong or right," hangs like a neon question mark over the era's rigid moral calculus. And it explains why the film had to hide in darkness. Daylight demanded tidy answers, midnight accepted messy truth. Angels with Dirty Faces, 1938. Rocky Sullivan strides out of prison grinning, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Every bit the Depression-era folk hero. Kids reenact his swagger in street games. Parish priest Pat O'Brien prays he won't glamorize crime. The real controversy? The film lets that question linger. Censors initially cheered the moral electric chair finale, until preview audiences debated a crucial detail. Did Rocky actually beg for mercy or fake cowardice to deter his worshipful young fans? James Cagney plays the moment ambiguously. We see only his silhouette thrashing. Religious newspapers demanded a reshoot to clarify. Warner Brothers refused. Diocesan boards threatened boycotts. Several Midwest cities scheduled the movie exclusively at 11 p.m. Saturday slots, preferring complaints about late hours to headlines about priest-condemned cinema. Teenagers nevertheless packed the balcony. In New York, theaters hired ex-cops to keep lines orderly. The controversy fed the box office, and Oscar voters. Cagney scored a nomination. The screenplay nabbed gold. But the bigger victory was cultural. Angels with Dirty Faces cracked. Hollywood's assumption that crime stories required tidy moral formulas. Sometimes a scared scream in the shadows is more powerful than any sermon. Midnight audiences got that. Daytime censors, not so much. The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946. Lana Turner's white shorts and halter top stroll into a dusty diner like a lit match in a gas leak. John Garfield's drifter flicks his cigarette. From that mutual spark, the Postman Always Rings Twice builds a slow, sweaty conspiracy to kill her dull, older husband. Earlier adaptations had been watered down, but 1946 audiences still gasped. The Hays Code required moral punishment, yet the film luxuriates in the lovers' chemistry, that sizzling burger scene, where desire and grease splatter in equal measure. Critics wrote that Turner's first entrance sent thermometers climbing. Sunday preachers preached the next morning about Hollywood's attack on marriage. Some cities slapped it with an adults-only tag, effectively nudging it into late evening. Independent exhibitors gambled on midnight showings, knowing curiosity wins out over curfews. Newspaper gossip columns breathlessly reported record ticket lines stretching well past midnight. Post-war America wrestled with new ideas: restless women, returning GIs, suburban temptation. Postman poured those anxieties into a noir cocktail, lethal, alluring, best consumed under neon moonlight. By dawn, viewers stumbled home, asking, is justice always moral or just inevitable? Lolita, 1962. How do you film a novel about a middle-aged man obsessed with a 12-year-old and hope to exhibit it? Very carefully. And even then, you're courting hellfire. Stanley Kubrick raised Nabokov's Nymphet to 14, cast the teenage Sue Lyon, and wrapped the story in black comedy. Yet, he left enough dread to scorch the screen. The British Board of Film Censors hesitated for months, demanding cuts. American regional boards were worse. Southern theaters refused bookings unless the poster blurred the heart-shaped sunglasses. Paramount responded by allowing only special late performances in sensitive zones, code for midnight. Ironically, the shimmer of taboo drove business. Lines of college students snaked around blocks, eager to parse Kubrick's ironies and Peter Sellers's chameleonic satire. Reviewers sparred. Time called it cold and clever, while the Catholic world labeled it a leering, perverted cartoon. Kubrick later admitted censorship forced him to underplay the darkest aspects, but that very restraint made the undertones louder. The final image, Humbert's crazed face superimposed on empty swings, left midnight viewers staring at their own guilt. No wonder towns preferred the lights already out, when audiences stumbled dazed into the night. Song of the South, 1946. Premiering in segregated Atlanta, Disney's Song of the South arrived to a brass band parade and immediate controversy. Set sometime after the Civil War, it paints an idyllic vision of Southern plantation life, with kindly Uncle Remus spinning animated fables for white children. Black newspapers blasted it as insidious nostalgia for slavery's social order. The NAACP protested outside theaters. Some cities banned projection outright. Disney, sensing brand risk, shifted to limited engagements. Midnight slots became convenient. Fewer picketers, fewer reporters, and audiences skewed toward dedicated animation buffs rather than families expecting wholesome fare. Theaters often omitted marquee titles, advertising only in-house. Viewers whispered passwords like "Speakeasy Patrons." They're running south Saturday after the last show. Yet the film's earworm anthem, Zip-a-dee-doo-dah, won an Oscar and lodged itself in pop culture, detached from its context. For decades, Disney re-released the movie internationally, but not domestically, stoking legend. Today the vault door stays sealed, but debate rages on message boards. Is it salvageable with disclaimers or irredeemable? Midnight was its only safe harbor, proof that sometimes the world's most powerful studio can create a product too hot for daytime magic. Freaks, 1932. Todd Browning's carnival drama begins with a barker inviting customers to witness the most astounding living monstrosities. What 1932 patrons didn't expect was to step inside those bodies, to see conjoined twins sharing casual gossip, a legless man lighting a cigarette, and a pinhead enjoying a picnic. The actual monster? A cruel trapeze artist who marries little person Hans for his inheritance. Preview audiences bolted. MGM excised half an hour, rumored to include the trapeze artist's graphic castration, and tacked on a lighter finale. Still, newspapers called it an affront to human dignity. Britain banned it until 1963. In America, the only steady bookings came from midnight horror programs, where sideshow aesthetics already drew thrill seekers. There, an unexpected transformation occurred. Regulars cheered the disabled performer's revenge chant. One of us, recognizing the story's moral switchback. Decades later, disability studies scholars reclaimed freaks as radical empathy, not exploitation. But in 1932, polite society could face its prejudices only in the dark after the last call, when empathy felt less threatening than daylight condemnation. Black Narcissus, 1947. High in the Himalayas, Sister Clodagh's nuns repaint a windswept palace once used for concubines. Bright prayer rugs flap like wounded birds. Winds howl through latticed corridors. Powder blue skies give way to feverish sunsets as isolation unspools the sisters' repressions. British bishops condemned Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's adaptation of Rumer Godden's novel for depicting nuns wrestling with erotic fantasies. Most vividly, Sister Ruth's near hallucinatory lust for a rugged government agent. When she finally stalks Clodagh along a cliff, her crimson lipstick blazes against stark white habit, a horror image that predated The Exorcist by decades. Censor boards shaved dialogue but couldn't mute the sensual visuals. In Ireland, showings required clergy approval. U.S. exhibitors compromised by booking it for 11:15 p.m. Art show slots, marketed to film club members rather than parish matinees. Word of mouth labeled it the nun movie too hot for Sundays. Today, cinephiles hail its matte painting peaks and erotic terror, but at the time, midnight allowed audiences to confront forbidden impulses, desire, doubt, jealousy, without daylight judgment staring back. The Children's Hour, 1961. Lillian Hellman's play was staged in 1934, but filmed nearly 3 decades later, still radioactive. 2 headmistresses at a girls' boarding school become targets of a malicious pupil who hints they're unnatural. Overnight, enrollment collapses, creditors pounce, and whisper campaigns spread like mold. Producer-director William Wyler tiptoed past leftover Hays Code landmines. No explicit language, no embrace between Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine. Yet MacLaine's final monologue, "I do love you," shattered taboos. Reviewers praised the performances but argued the theme, society's weaponization of rumor, was morbid. Several southern circuits canceled bookings. Others quarantined the movie at 12:05 a.m., after couples and church groups had gone home. Some patrons slipped in from back alleys, fearing to be recognized. Yet within those darkened rooms, the film struck like a tuning fork, exposing the cost of lies and the loneliness of unspoken truths. Wyler's quiet camera left audiences to fill the silence with their own anxieties. Something a midnight hush makes deafening. Peeping Tom, 1960. Michael Powell invites us behind the lens of Mark Lewis, a shy studio focus puller who murders women while filming their deaths to capture ultimate fear. The British press responded with unprecedented venom. The Observer's critic wrote, "The only really satisfactory way to dispose of Peeping Tom would be to shovel it up and flush it swiftly down the nearest sewer." Mainstream cinemas yanked it after a week. Yet word of mouth among horror aficionados sparked a second life in packed midnight double bills with Psycho. Something about Lewis's camera eye reflecting audience complicity proved addictive. College societies in Liverpool and Leeds hired private halls for 11 p.m. screenings, sometimes followed by debates on ethics and art. Scorsese discovered the film in a New York revival house in the 1970s and championed Powell's exile-era work. Today, critics hail it as a slasher template and an essay on spectatorship, but in 1960, citizens needed darkness to face the notion that merely watching could be its own sin. Island of Lost Souls, 1932. Screens fade up on a freighter deck awash with tropical rain. A battered crate writhes, something screaming inside. Welcome to Dr. Moreau's Island, where animals are vivisected into shambling parodies of humanity. The film's makeup effects, like hands, half masks glued to sweating actors, felt less like costumes than punishments. Audiences staggered, religious leaders fulminated about playing God. 4 U.S. states banned exhibition. Britain refused a certificate for 25 years. Paramount replaced the original tagline with a warning: not suitable for children. Yet the only steady box office came from late-night horror slots, where adults too sometimes fainted. Behind the gore lurked a bleak philosophy. If beasts can be surgically improved, what separates civilization from savagery? Bela Lugosi's sorrowful Wolfman chants, "Are we not men?" A line that would echo through H.G. Wells' adaptations and Devo rock songs decades later. Island of Lost Souls pioneered body horror long before the term existed, and only midnight crowds had the stomach, or perhaps the curiosity, to hear Moreau's whip crack in the moonlit jungle. And there you have it. 16 films so volatile they could screen only when the clock struck 12. Each is a grenade lobbed at the moral barricades of its day, sometimes exploding careers, sometimes reshaping the art form itself. So the next time someone claims Hollywood's golden age was all sweetness and starlight, tell them about the riots, the church boycotts, the police standing outside 12:30 a.m. shows, and the viewers who still filed in, wide-eyed, ticket stubs trembling, ready to see what daylight wasn't allowed to show. If this dive into cinema's forbidden attic lit a spark, smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, and stay tuned. We've got more hidden reels to unwind, some shocking, some sublime, all unforgettable.